The champagne glass slipped through Nathaniel Brooks's fingers, shattering against the marble floor of the hotel ballroom. 200 pairs of eyes turned toward him, but he barely noticed. He was too focused on the woman standing 10 feet away, her perfectly manicured hand resting possessively on another man's arm, her lips curved into a smile that looked more like a knife. "Oh, Nathaniel," Candace said, her voice carrying across the sudden silence. "Still so clumsy. I guess some things never change, do they?" The laughter started small, just a few chuckles from the people nearest to them, but it spread like wildfire through his 20th high school reunion. Nathaniel felt his chest tighten. He'd built a tech empire worth $3 billion. He'd been featured in Forbes, Time, and Fortune. He'd shaken hands with presidents and given speeches to thousands. But right now, standing in this ballroom with broken glass at his feet and his ex-wife's mocking eyes on him, he felt like the awkward teenager he'd been 20 years ago. "At least I'm not dropping my responsibilities," Nathaniel said quietly, trying to maintain his dignity. "Brianna is doing great, by the way. She got straight A's this semester." Candace's smile sharpened. "Oh yes, your daughter. The one you barely see because you're always working. Tell me, Nathaniel, how many of her school events have you actually attended this year?" "I've attended every single one," Nathaniel said, his voice steady despite the rage building inside him. "Every parent-teacher conference, every school play, every soccer game. Via video call doesn't count, darling," Candace's new husband, a real estate developer named Preston, interjected. He was tall, white, with silver hair that probably cost more to maintain than most people's mortgages. "A child needs a parent present, not a face on a screen." "That's rich coming from you," Nathaniel said, his hands clenching at his sides. "You left us when Brianna was 3 years old. You walked away and didn't look back for 6 years. The crowd had formed a loose circle around them now, everyone pretending not to listen while hanging on every word. Nathaniel recognized faces from his past. Football players who'd shoved him into lockers, cheerleaders who'd laughed at his thrift store clothes, teachers who doubted he'd amount to anything. He'd come here tonight to prove them all wrong, to show them the man he'd become. Instead, he was being humiliated all over again. "I made a mistake," Candace said, her voice taking on a practiced sweetness that made Nathaniel's stomach turn. "I was young and scared and I made a terrible choice. But at least I'm woman enough to admit it. At least I'm trying to make amends now. By showing up at my door once every 3 months with expensive gifts and false promises?" Nathaniel shook his head. "Brianna sees right through you, Candace. She knows the difference between a parent and a visitor." "Is that what you tell her?" Candace's eyes flashed. "Do you poison my own daughter against me?" "I don't have to," Nathaniel said. "You do that all by yourself every time you cancel plans with her, every time you forget her birthday, every time you choose your new life over the family you abandoned." Preston stepped forward, his face reddening. "Now you listen here. You can't talk to my wife that way." "Your wife?" Nathaniel laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Your wife has a daughter she pretends doesn't exist except when it's convenient for her image. Your wife walked out on a 3-year-old child and didn't send so much as a birthday card for years. That's who you married, Preston. Congratulations." The ballroom had gone completely silent now. Nathaniel could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. He could feel sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. He wanted to leave, to walk out with his head held high, but his feet felt like they were nailed to the floor. "You're pathetic," Candace said, and her voice had lost all pretense of sweetness now. "You always were and you always will be. You think your money makes you better than everyone else? You think your big fancy company erases the fact that you're raising a child alone because you're too broken to let anyone else in?" "I'm not broken," Nathaniel said, but his voice cracked on the last word. "Aren't you?" Candace tilted her head, studying him like he was a bug under a microscope. "You're so terrified of being hurt again that you've built walls around yourself and Brianna. That poor child doesn't have a mother because I made mistakes, and she doesn't really have a father because you're too busy building your empire to actually be present in her life." "That's not true," Nathaniel said, but even he could hear the doubt in his own voice. "Isn't it?" Preston chimed in. "We've done our research, Nathaniel. We know you work 16-hour days. We know Brianna spends most of her time with nannies and tutors. We know you're so consumed with proving yourself that you've forgotten what actually matters." The words hit Nathaniel like physical blows. He thought about this morning, how he'd promised Brianna he'd be home in time for dinner and then gotten caught in back-to-back meetings. He thought about last week, when she'd asked him to help with her science project and he'd handed her his credit card instead of his time. He thought about all the moments he'd missed, all the times he'd chosen his company over his daughter, all the ways he was failing her. Maybe Candace was right. Maybe he was broken. Maybe he was a terrible father. Maybe he didn't deserve Brianna. The thoughts spiraled through his mind, each one darker than the last. He could feel himself shutting down, all the confidence and success he'd built over 20 years crumbling like sand castles at high tide. He needed to leave. He needed to get out of this ballroom before he completely fell apart in front of everyone. He turned toward the exit, his vision blurring with tears he refused to let fall. The crowd parted for him, but he could hear their whispers following him like ghosts. I always knew he'd end up alone. Money can't buy happiness, I guess. Feel sorry for that little girl of his. Nathaniel was 3 steps from the door when he heard a new voice cut through the whispers. Excuse me, but I have something to say. He turned, confused, and saw a woman walking toward him from the side entrance of the ballroom. She was beautiful, with smooth dark skin, natural hair pulled back in a neat bun, and warm brown eyes that seemed to see right through him. She wore black pants and a white shirt with a catering company logo, clearly part of the event staff. He recognized her, though it took him a moment to place from where. The office building. She was the janitor who cleaned his floor every night. He'd seen her dozens of times, had said hello in passing, had noticed the way she hummed while she worked and always left a small origami figure on his desk. He'd never really talked to her, had never even asked her name, but she was here now, walking straight toward him with purpose in every step. I'm sorry, she said, her voice clear and strong. I know I'm just here to serve drinks and clean up after your party, but I can't stay quiet after what I just witnessed. What kind of person stands by and watches injustice without speaking up? If you believe in defending those who can't defend themselves, subscribe to hear how this story unfolds. Comment below. Would you have the courage to stand up for a stranger? Imani Washington had been carrying a tray of empty glasses toward the kitchen when she'd heard the commotion. She'd worked enough catering gigs to know when drama was brewing, and usually she made it a point to stay out of other people's business. She had enough problems of her own without adding someone else's to the pile. But then she'd seen him. The man from the office building, the one who always thanked her by name even though she'd never told him what it was. She'd learned it from her name tag, she assumed, but the fact that he'd bothered to read it and remember it set him apart from most of the executives in that building. Most of them looked right through her like she was part of the furniture. She'd watched him stand there, shoulders slumping under the weight of his ex-wife's cruel words, and something inside her had snapped. She'd set down her tray and walked straight into that circle of well-dressed vultures before she could talk herself out of it. Now, standing in the middle of the ballroom with everyone staring at her, Imani felt her heart pounding. What was she doing? She was a janitor, a single mother barely keeping her head above water, and these people were millionaires and executives and probably the kind of folks who could get her fired with a single phone call. But when she looked at Nathaniel Brooks's face, saw the devastation there, she knew she couldn't walk away. My name is Imani Washington, she said, addressing the room. I clean the offices at Brooks Technologies 5 nights a week. I've been doing it for 2 years now, and in that time, I've gotten to know Mr. Brooks in a way that I suspect most of you never have. Candace laughed, a sharp sound that made Imani's teeth clench. Oh, this is precious. The cleaning lady is coming to his defense. Yes, I am, Imani said evenly. Because unlike you, I've actually witnessed the kind of father he is. She turned to face Nathaniel, speaking directly to him now. I see you every night, Mr. Brooks. When I come in at 10 o'clock to clean your office, you're still there working at your desk. But you know what else you're doing? You're video calling your daughter. I've heard you reading bedtime stories to her, helping her with homework, listening to her talk about her day. I've seen you decorated your entire office with her artwork. I've watched you leave your meetings early to make sure you don't miss saying goodnight to her. Nathaniel's eyes widened. He'd had no idea anyone noticed those things. Last month, Imani continued, I came in and found you asleep at your desk with your laptop still open to a video call. Your daughter had already gone to bed, but you'd left the call running just so she wouldn't wake up alone. I saw the timestamp. You'd been on that call for 4 hours after she fell asleep, working quietly so you wouldn't wake her up. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Nathaniel felt something loosening in his chest, like a fist that had been clenched around his heart was finally relaxing. 2 weeks ago, Imani said, I found you pacing in your office at midnight, practicing a speech. I heard you rehearsing for your daughter's career day at school. You must have gone through that speech 20 times, trying to make it interesting enough for 8-year-olds. You were worried about embarrassing her. I was, Nathaniel admitted quietly. I didn't want to be the boring dad who talked about computer code. You weren't, Imani said with a small smile. I know because I asked my sons about it. They go to the same school. They told me you brought in virtual reality headsets and let all the kids try them. They said you made technology sound like magic. My boys talked about it for a week. Nathaniel remembered that day. Brianna had hugged him afterward and told him he was the coolest dad in the whole school. It had been one of the best moments of his year. And you know what else I see, Mr. Brooks? Imani's voice grew stronger. I see the way you tip the night staff every holiday. Not just a few dollars, but real money that makes a difference in people's lives. I see the donations you make to the children's hospital, the scholarships you fund for single parents trying to go back to school, the food bank you stock every month. You do all of that quietly, without press releases or photo opportunities. You do it because you genuinely care about people. She turned to face Candace now, and her expression hardened. So when you stand here and call this man a bad father, when you accuse him of neglecting his daughter, I have to speak up. Because I've seen the truth. I've seen a man who works himself to exhaustion trying to build a better future for his child while still being present in her daily life. I've seen a father who loves his daughter so much that he's learned to braid hair by watching YouTube videos. I've seen a good man who deserves respect, not ridicule. The ballroom was completely silent. Candace's face had gone pale, then red, then pale again. Preston looked uncomfortable, his eyes darting toward the exit like he was considering making a run for it. You have no right, Candace finally said, her voice shaking with rage. You have no right to talk about my daughter or my ex-husband or my marriage. You're the cleaning lady. You're nobody. Maybe, Imani said calmly. But at least I'm nobody who tells the truth. Nathaniel felt tears burning in his eyes, but this time they weren't tears of shame. They were tears of gratitude, of relief, of something he couldn't quite name. This woman, this stranger who owed him nothing, had stood up for him when no one else would. She'd seen him, really seen him, in a way that made him feel less alone than he'd felt in years. Thank you, he said, his voice rough with emotion. You didn't have to do that. Yes, I did, Imani said simply. It was the right thing to do. Nathaniel looked around the ballroom at all the faces staring back at him. Some looked ashamed, others impressed, a few still skeptical. But he didn't care anymore what they thought. He had clarity now, certainty that he wasn't the failure Candace had tried to paint him as. He was doing his best, and his best was pretty good. I think I'm going to leave now, he said to Imani. Would you like a ride home? It's the least I can do. Imani glanced at her supervisor, who was watching the scene with wide eyes. The woman nodded quickly, probably relieved to avoid any more drama. Yes, Imani said. I would like that very much. They walked out together, side by side, leaving the stunned crowd behind. As they stepped into the cool night air, Nathaniel felt like he could breathe again for the first time all evening. I don't even know your name, he said as they approached his car, a sleek black Tesla that looked out of place in the hotel parking lot. Imani, she said. Imani Washington. Imani, he repeated, liking the way it sounded. That's beautiful. What does it mean? Faith, she said. My mother chose it because she had faith that better days were coming, even when times were hard. Was she right? Nathaniel asked as he opened the passenger door for her. Imani slid into the seat, thinking about her two boys waiting at home with her elderly neighbor, thinking about the bills piled on her kitchen table, thinking about how tired she was all the time. But she also thought about Jerome and Justice's laughter, about the way they hugged her every morning, about the small moments of joy that made everything worthwhile. Yes, she said finally. She was right. Better days always come if you keep faith. Nathaniel got into the driver's seat and started the engine. As they pulled out of the parking lot, he glanced over at Imani and felt something shift inside him. He didn't know what this night would lead to, didn't know if they'd ever speak again after he dropped her off at her home. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Meeting Imani Washington was the best thing that had happened to him in a very long time. The rain started just as Nathaniel merged onto the highway. It began as a light drizzle, barely enough to warrant turning on the wipers, but within minutes it had escalated into a downpour that drummed against the roof of the car like 1,000 tiny fingers. Where do you live? Nathaniel asked, adjusting his grip on the steering wheel as visibility dropped. Riverside Apartments, Imani said. It's about 20 minutes from here, near the industrial district. Nathaniel knew the area. He'd driven through it once or twice, seen the aging buildings and cracked sidewalks, the kind of neighborhood that had been forgotten by city planners and developers. It was the kind of place he'd grown up in, before his company had made him wealthy beyond his wildest dreams. I'm sorry about what happened back there, Imani said suddenly. I probably made things worse. Your ex-wife is going to hate me. She already hated you the moment you contradicted her, Nathaniel said with a slight smile. Candace doesn't handle being challenged well. But you didn't make anything worse. You made it better. You saved me. I just told the truth, Imani said, but she felt warmth spreading through her chest at his words. They drove in comfortable silence for a few minutes, the rain creating a cocoon around them. Nathaniel found himself not wanting the drive to end. There was something peaceful about being in this car with this woman, sealed off from the rest of the world by weather and darkness and the simple fact that they were strangers who somehow understood each other. Can I ask you something? He said. Sure. Why did you really do it? Stand up for me, I mean. You could have lost your job. Candace knows a lot of people and she's vindictive. She could make trouble for you. Imani was quiet for a moment, watching the rain cascade down the windshield. My husband died 3 years ago, she said finally. Car accident. 1 minute he was here, the next he was gone. After he died, I had to figure out how to keep going for my boys. I had to work 3 jobs just to keep a roof over our heads. And you know what I learned? What? That kindness matters. That standing up for people matters. That we're all just doing our best, and sometimes our best looks messy or imperfect, but it's still enough. She turned to look at him. I've watched you for 2 years, Mr. Brooks. I've seen you stay late at the office, talking to your daughter, making sure she feels loved even when you can't be there physically. I've seen the kind of man you are. And when I saw your ex-wife tearing you down, trying to make you feel like you weren't enough, I couldn't stay silent. Because you are enough. More than enough. Nathaniel felt his throat tighten. Please call me Nathaniel. And thank you. I needed to hear that tonight. You're welcome, Imani said softly. They reached her apartment building faster than Nathaniel wanted. He pulled into the parking lot and turned off the engine, but neither of them moved to leave. The rain was coming down even harder now, turning the world outside into a blur of gray and black. Do you want to wait until the rain lets up? Nathaniel asked. It doesn't look like it's going to let up anytime soon, Imani said, but she made no move to open her door. The truth was she didn't want this night to end either. There was something easy about talking to Nathaniel, something that made her feel less alone than she'd felt in 3 years. Tell me about your boys, Nathaniel said, settling back in his seat. Imani's face lit up. Jerome and Justice. They're twins 10 years old. They're everything to me. Jerome is the serious one, always reading, always asking questions about how things work. Justice is the wild one, all energy and laughter and mischief. They balance each other out. Do they know what happened to their father? Nathaniel asked gently. Yes, Imani said. I told them the truth. Their dad was driving home from work one night and a drunk driver ran a red light. He died instantly. Didn't suffer. I thought about lying, about making up some gentler story, but I decided they deserved the truth. They were 7 years old and they handled it better than I did. I'm so sorry, Nathaniel said. Me too, Imani said. But we've survived. We found a way to keep going. And I like to think Marcus would be proud of us. He always said that no matter what life threw at us, we had to face it with grace and courage. So that's what we're doing. Brianna's mother left when she was 3, Nathaniel found himself saying. Just packed her bags one day and said she couldn't do it anymore. Said she was too young to be a mother, that she felt trapped, that she needed to find herself. He laughed bitterly. She found herself all right. Found herself a rich husband and a new life that didn't include the daughter she left behind. That must have been so hard, Imani said. It was harder on Brianna, Nathaniel said. She used to ask me when mommy was coming home. I didn't know what to tell her. I wanted to hate Candace, but mostly I just felt sad for Brianna. No child should have to wonder why their parent doesn't want them. But she has you, Imani pointed out. And from everything I've seen, you're doing an amazing job. Some days I feel like I am, Nathaniel admitted. Other days I feel like I'm failing her in 1,000 different ways. I work too much. I travel too much. I rely on nannies and tutors because I can't be everywhere at once. And tonight, hearing Candace say those things, it just confirmed all my worst fears about myself. Candace is wrong, Imani said firmly. You know how I know? Because I see the evidence of your love everywhere. Your daughter's artwork all over your office. The way you talk to her on those video calls, giving her your full attention even when you're exhausted. The way you plan activities with her, the way you show up for her school events. Love isn't about being perfect, Nathaniel. It's about being present even when it's hard. And you're present for Brianna in all the ways that matter. Nathaniel turned to look at her, really look at her, and felt something settle in his chest. This woman understood. She got it. She knew what it was like to be a single parent trying to balance everything, to feel like you were always falling short, to love your child so much it physically hurt. I want to help you, he said impulsively. I want to make your life easier. You said you work 3 jobs. Let me pay you for the kindness you showed me tonight. Let me cover your rent for a few months or pay off your car or something. Please. Imani stiffened slightly. I don't need charity. It's not charity, Nathaniel said quickly. It's gratitude. You defended me when no one else would. You stood up to my ex-wife and her husband and a room full of people who would have happily watched me fall apart. That's worth something. More than something. It's worth everything. Imani bit her lip, torn between pride and practicality. She thought about the stack of bills on her kitchen table. The school fees that were due next month. The fact that Jerome needed glasses and Justice needed new shoes and she needed at least 24 more hours in every day to make ends meet. My boys, she said slowly. They go to Riverside Elementary. The school fees are due at the end of the month. I've been saving but I'm still short about $800. If you really want to help, if you really mean it, that would make a huge difference. Consider it done, Nathaniel said immediately. Give me the school's information and I'll have my assistant handle it first thing Monday morning. Just like that, Imani said. Just like that, Nathaniel confirmed. And if there's anything else you need, anything at all, please tell me. I mean it, Imani. You gave me something precious tonight. You gave me back my dignity. Let me give you something in return. Imani felt tears pricking at her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. You have no idea what this means to me. I think I do, Nathaniel said gently. They sat in the car for another hour talking about everything and nothing. Imani told him about her favorite memories with her late husband, about the time Jerome got stuck in a tree trying to rescue a cat, about how Justice wanted to be an astronaut. Nathaniel told her about Brianna's obsession with marine biology, about the time he'd accidentally flooded his kitchen trying to make his daughter breakfast in bed, about how scared he'd been when he started his company with nothing but an idea and a dream. By the time the rain finally started to let up, they both felt like they'd known each other for years instead of hours. I should go in, Imani said reluctantly. My neighbor is watching the boys and she has to work early tomorrow morning. Of course, Nathaniel said. Can I ask you something before you go? Anything. Can we do this again? Talk, I mean. Maybe coffee sometime or lunch. I know that sounds forward, but I haven't had a conversation this good in longer than I can remember. And I think maybe you could use a friend as much as I could. Imani smiled and it was like the sun coming out after the storm. I would like that very much. They exchanged phone numbers and Nathaniel insisted on walking her to her apartment door despite the rain. As they stood under the overhang, water dripping from the edges, Imani realized that this strange, terrible, wonderful night had changed something fundamental in her life. She'd found a friend. Maybe even more than that, though it was too soon to tell. She'd found someone who understood what it meant to fight for your children, to work yourself to exhaustion, to love with everything you had even when the world told you it wasn't enough. Good night, Nathaniel, she said. Good night, Imani, he replied. And thank you. For everything. As he walked back to his car, Nathaniel felt lighter than he had in months. Years maybe. He'd gone to that reunion expecting to feel triumphant, to rub his success in the faces of everyone who doubted him. Instead, he'd been humiliated and broken down, only to be lifted up by the most unexpected person. He drove home slowly, thinking about Imani's words, about the way she'd truly seen him in a way no one else had in a long time. He thought about her boys, about her late husband, about the strength it must take to keep going after losing the person you loved most. When he got home, Brianna was already asleep. The nanny had left a note saying everything went fine, that Brianna had done her homework and brushed her teeth and gone to bed on time. Nathaniel crept into his daughter's room and sat on the edge of her bed, watching her sleep. She looked so peaceful, so innocent. He reached out and gently moved a strand of hair from her face, and she stirred slightly, murmuring something he couldn't quite hear. I'm going to do better, he whispered. I promise. I'm going to be the father you deserve. He thought about Imani's words about being present, about love being enough even when it felt imperfect. He thought about the fact that Brianna had told a judge he was a good father, had defended him to her school friends, had chosen him over Candace time and time again. Maybe he was doing better than he thought. Maybe he was enough after all. As he left Brianna's room and headed to his own, Nathaniel felt something he hadn't felt in years. He felt hope. Hope that better days were coming. Hope that he wasn't alone anymore. Hope that maybe, just maybe, meeting Imani Washington was the beginning of something wonderful. 3 days after the reunion, Nathaniel found himself deliberately staying late at the office. He told himself it was because he had work to catch up on, important emails to answer, reports to review. But the truth was simpler and more complicated all at once. He wanted to see Imani. She arrived at exactly 10 o'clock, the same time she always did. Nathaniel watched from his office doorway as she set down her cleaning cart in the hallway, pulling out supplies with practiced efficiency. She wore the same uniform he'd seen dozens of times before, her hair pulled back in the same neat bun, but now he saw her differently. Now he saw the woman who'd stood up for him when no one else would. "Working late again, Mr. Brooks?" she called out, not looking up from her cart. "I told you to call me Nathaniel," he said, walking toward her. She looked up and smiled. "Old habits. How's Brianna?" "She's good. I told her about you, actually. About what you did at the reunion." "What did she say?" "She said you sound like a superhero," Nathaniel grinned. "She made me promise to introduce you sometime." Imani laughed, and the sound filled the empty hallway with warmth. "I'm no superhero. Just someone who believes in doing the right thing." "That's exactly what a superhero would say," Nathaniel pointed out. "Look, I know you're working, but do you have time for a quick coffee break? There's a fresh pot in the break room." Imani glanced at her watch. "My supervisor doesn't usually show up until midnight to check on us. I guess I could take 15 minutes. They sat in the break room with steaming cups of coffee between them, the fluorescent lights humming softly overhead. Nathaniel had prepared for this moment, had checked with his assistant to make sure the school fees were paid, had thought about what he wanted to say. But now that they were here, he found himself tongue-tied. "The school called me," Imani said, saving him. "They said an anonymous donor paid Jerome and Justice's fees for the entire year, not just this month." "Nathaniel, that was too much." "It wasn't enough," Nathaniel said. "And it wasn't anonymous. I want you to know it came from me. I want you to know that I keep my promises." "You didn't promise to pay for the whole year." "No, but I wanted to. Imani, you have no idea what you gave me that night. You gave me back something I didn't even know I'd lost. My sense of self-worth, maybe. My belief that I'm a good father. Something important that I'd let Candace take away from me over the years." Imani wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. "I just told the truth." "You did more than that," Nathaniel said. "You saw me. Really saw me. Do you know how rare that is? Most people look at me and see a billionaire or a CEO or a black man who got lucky. They don't see the person underneath all of that. But you did. And I want to return the favor." "What do you mean?" "I want to know you better," Nathaniel said. "I want to know your story, your dreams, what makes you laugh and what keeps you up at night. I want to meet your boys. I want to be your friend if you'll let me." Imani studied him for a long moment. There was something in his eyes, something honest and vulnerable, that made her want to say yes. But she was cautious by nature, especially after losing Marcus. She'd built walls around herself and her boys, walls designed to keep out anything that might hurt them. "Why?" she asked simply. "Because I'm lonely," Nathaniel said, and the honesty of it seemed to surprise even him. "I'm surrounded by people all day long. Employees, business partners, lawyers, investors. But none of them really know me. None of them care about the real me, the one who's just trying to be a good father to his daughter. You're the first person in years who's seen that part of me and not judged it." "I'm lonely too," Imani admitted. "I have my boys and I love them more than anything. But adult conversation? Friendship? Those are things I gave up when Marcus died and I started working 3 jobs. I don't have time for friends anymore." "Then let's make time," Nathaniel said. "What do you do on weekends?" "I cater events at hotels and conference centers," Imani said. "It's good money and I can usually bring the boys with me. They do homework in the kitchen while I work." Nathaniel frowned. "That's no way for kids to spend their weekends." "It's the way we have to spend them," Imani said defensively. "Not all of us have the luxury of choosing how we spend our time." "I know," Nathaniel said quickly. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to sound judgmental. I just meant that maybe I could help. What if instead of catering this weekend, you and the boys came to my house? Brianna has been asking to meet you and I thought maybe the kids could play together while we talk. I'll order pizza, we'll keep it casual, no pressure." Imani wanted to say no. Every instinct told her to keep her distance, to maintain the boundary between her world and his. But she thought about Jerome and Justice, about how they spent every weekend either doing homework in restaurant kitchens or watching television at home while she slept off the exhaustion from her night shifts. They deserved more. They deserved a day of just being kids. "Okay," she said. "But only if you promise not to make it weird." "What does that mean?" "It means no showing off. No excessive gifts. No trying to impress us with your money. Just be yourself. Be Nathaniel the dad, not Nathaniel the billionaire." Deal? Nathaniel said, extending his hand. She shook it, and the simple touch sent a jolt through both of them that neither wanted to acknowledge yet. Saturday arrived faster than Imani expected. She spent an hour trying to figure out what to wear, finally settling on jeans and a red sweater that Marcus had always said brought out her smile. Jerome and Justice were practically vibrating with excitement, asking 100 questions about where they were going and who they were meeting. "He's just a man," Imani told them as she drove toward Nathaniel's address. "A nice man who invited us over for pizza. Don't make a big deal out of it." But when they pulled up to the house, all three of them fell silent. It wasn't just a house. It was an estate with iron gates and a circular driveway and more windows than Imani could count. She almost turned the car around, suddenly feeling like this was a terrible mistake. They didn't belong here. They didn't fit in this world of manicured lawns and three-car garages. Before she could shift into reverse, the front door opened and Nathaniel stepped out, followed by a little girl with curly hair and the biggest smile Imani had ever seen. They were both wearing jeans and t-shirts, and Nathaniel was waving like they were old friends. "Too late to run now," Justice said from the back seat. "We're not running," Imani said, turning off the engine. "We're being brave." Nathaniel met them at the car, helping the boys out while Brianna bounced on her toes with excitement. "You must be Jerome and Justice," Brianna said. "Dad told me you were twins." "That's so cool. I always wanted a brother or sister." "Well, actually I wanted a dolphin, but Dad said we couldn't keep one in the pool." The boys laughed, and just like that the tension broke. Within minutes, all three children were running toward the backyard, their voices carrying on the afternoon air. "She's wonderful," Imani said, watching them go. "She is," Nathaniel agreed. "And a little weird. The dolphin thing is very real. She's obsessed with marine life." "Justice wants to be an astronaut," Imani said. "He sleeps with a model of the solar system above his bed." They walked toward the house together, and Nathaniel gave her a tour. It was beautiful, all high ceilings and natural light, but it also felt empty somehow. There was expensive furniture but few personal touches. Artwork on the walls but no family photos. It was a house, not a home. "I know what you're thinking," Nathaniel said as they ended up in the kitchen. "It's too big, too impersonal. I bought it thinking Brianna needed space to grow, room to play. But mostly it just feels lonely." "It has good bones," Imani said diplomatically. "It just needs some warmth." They ordered pizza and ate it at the kitchen table while the children told stories and jokes. Jerome explained his current book about ancient Egypt, speaking with an intensity that made Nathaniel smile. Justice demonstrated his ability to burp the alphabet, which had Brianna laughing so hard she nearly fell off her chair. After dinner the kids went outside to play basketball. Nathaniel and Imani cleaned up the kitchen together, falling into an easy rhythm of washing and drying dishes. "This is nice," Nathaniel said. "I can't remember the last time I had people over just to spend time together. No business agenda, no networking opportunities. Just friendship." "It is nice," Imani agreed. "The boys needed this. They spend too much time with just me. It's good for them to see adults being friends, to see normal interaction." "There's something I want to talk to you about," Nathaniel said, setting down his dish towel. "And I need you to hear me out before you say no." Imani's stomach clenched. "Nathaniel?" "Just listen," he said. "I've been thinking about what you said about working 3 jobs, about not having time for yourself or your boys. And I have an idea. What if you worked for me full-time?" "I already have a job with your company," Imani pointed out. "I'm the janitor, remember?" "I'm talking about a different position," Nathaniel said. "My household manager quit last month and I haven't found a replacement. The job would involve overseeing the house staff, organizing Brianna's schedule, managing household expenses, basically keeping everything running smoothly. It would pay 3 times what you make from all your jobs combined, plus benefits. Health insurance, paid vacation, retirement contributions." "Nathaniel, that's too much," Imani protested. "It's not," he insisted. "It's a real job with real responsibilities. I need someone I can trust, someone who understands what it's like to be a single parent, someone who'll treat Brianna with kindness and not just see her as a paycheck. You're perfect for it." "I don't know," Imani said, but he could hear the longing in her voice. "There's more," Nathaniel said. "The position comes with housing. There's a guest house on the property, 3 bedrooms, completely separate from the main house. You and the boys would have your own space, your own privacy, but you'd be close enough that you wouldn't have to commute. Jerome and Justice could go to the same school as Brianna. They could have a yard to play in, space to just be kids." Imani felt tears building. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you need help and I'm in a position to give it," Nathaniel said simply. Because those boys deserve better than spending their weekends in restaurant kitchens. Because you deserve to not work yourself into an early grave. And yes, because I'm selfish and I want to see you more than once a week in a hallway at 10 o'clock at night. That's honest, Imani said with a shaky laugh. I promise to be honest with you, Nathaniel said. Always. So here's the truth. Taking this job would help me as much as it helps you. Maybe more. I need someone I trust running my household. I need someone who'll call me out when I'm working too much or neglecting Brianna. I need a friend, Imani. And I think maybe you need one too. Imani looked out the window at her boys playing basketball with Brianna. They looked so happy, so carefree. When was the last time she'd seen them like this? When was the last time she'd felt like she could breathe? If I say yes, she said slowly, you have to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you won't treat this like charity. Promise me you'll let me earn my place here, that you'll expect real work from me. I can't be your employee and your charity case at the same time. It would ruin everything. I promise, Nathaniel said. You'll work hard and I'll probably drive you crazy with my schedule and my demands. But at the end of every day you'll know you earned every penny. Deal? Imani extended her hand. Deal. As they shook hands, both of them felt the rightness of the moment. This was the beginning of something important. Not just a job, not just a friendship, but something that would change all of their lives in ways they couldn't yet imagine. 2 weeks later, Imani and her boys moved into the guest house. It was overwhelming at first, adjusting to the new space and the new routine. But Nathaniel made good on his promise. She worked hard, managing a staff of 5, coordinating Brianna's activities, handling household repairs and purchases. The boys thrived in their new school. Jerome joined the chess club and the science team. Justice made the basketball team and the choir. They had friends for the first time in years, real friends who came over to play and stayed for dinner. And slowly, imperceptibly, Nathaniel's house began to feel like a home. Imani added photographs to the walls, plants to the windowsills, warmth and color to the spaces that had felt so empty before. The kitchen filled with the smell of home-cooked meals. The living room echoed with children's laughter. One evening, 3 months after Imani started working for him, Nathaniel came home from a business trip to find all 4 children had built a blanket fort in the living room. They were inside watching a movie, their voices mingling in the darkness. Imani was in the kitchen cooking something that smelled incredible. She was humming the same song he'd heard her hum while cleaning his office, and she looked so at peace that Nathaniel felt his breath catch. "Welcome home," she said, looking up with a smile. "How was San Francisco?" "Long," he said. "Lonely. I missed this. The house." "No," he said honestly. "This. The sound of kids laughing. The smell of dinner cooking. Coming home to someone who's actually happy to see me. I missed you, Imani. All of you." She set down her spoon and looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the truth in his eyes. Something had shifted between them, something neither of them was quite ready to name yet. But it was there, warm and real and impossible to ignore. "We missed you too," she said softly. "Even the house felt emptier without you in it." They stood there in the kitchen, the children's laughter drifting from the living room, and both of them knew that they'd crossed some invisible line. They weren't just employer and employee anymore. They weren't even just friends. They were becoming a family. And that realization was both terrifying and wonderful all at once. The transition happened more smoothly than anyone expected. Within weeks of moving into the guest house, Imani had transformed Nathaniel's life in ways he never imagined possible. She didn't just manage his household, she made it feel alive. Every morning he woke up to the smell of breakfast cooking. Not fancy chef-prepared meals like his previous staff had provided, but real food, pancakes and eggs, bacon and fresh fruit, the kind of breakfast that made Brianna chatter excitedly through every bite. Imani would pack lunches for all 3 children, adding little notes that made them smile. She'd organize carpools to school, coordinate after-school activities, and somehow still have dinner ready when everyone came home. But it was the small things that really changed everything. The way she remembered that Nathaniel took his coffee black with 1 sugar. The way she laid out his clothes for important meetings, not because he couldn't dress himself but because she knew he appreciated having one less decision to make in the morning. The way she texted him during the day with updates about the children, little moments he would have missed otherwise. Jerome had won his first chess tournament. Justice had made a new friend who shared his love of space. Brianna had written a story about a dolphin detective that her teacher wanted to submit to a children's magazine. These were the moments that made life worth living, and Imani made sure Nathaniel never missed them. 6 months into the arrangement, Nathaniel's business partners started commenting on the change in him. He was sharper in meetings, more creative in his solutions, less stressed about deadlines. His assistant mentioned that he actually took his full lunch hour now instead of working through it. His doctor noted that his blood pressure had dropped to normal levels. Whatever you're doing differently, his longtime friend and CFO Raymond Chin told him over lunch one day, keep doing it. You seem happier than I've seen you in years. I have help now, Nathaniel said simply. Real help. The kind that makes everything else possible. You mean your new household manager? Raymond raised an eyebrow. I heard about her. Teresa mentioned that you've had her at a few company events. Teresa was Raymond's wife, and she was notorious for her gossip network. If she'd heard about Imani, that meant others had too. What exactly did Teresa say? Nathaniel asked carefully. Just that you brought a beautiful woman and her 2 boys to the company picnic last month. That you all seemed very comfortable together. That Brianna called her Miss Imani and held her hand the entire time. Raymond studied his friend's face. She's more than just your employee, isn't she? She's my friend, Nathaniel said firmly. And yes, she's important to me. She's important to Brianna. But it's not what you're thinking. What am I thinking? That there's something romantic happening, Nathaniel said. There's not. Imani works for me. We have a professional relationship that's become a friendship. That's all. Raymond laughed. Nathaniel, I've known you for 15 years. I've never once heard you talk about someone the way you talk about her. Your whole face lights up when you mention her name. And I saw you at that picnic. The way you looked at her, the way you made sure she had everything she needed, the way you laughed at her jokes. That's not just friendship, brother. That's something more. It can't be, Nathaniel said, but even he could hear the doubt in his own voice. It would complicate everything. She works for me. She lives on my property. Her boys go to school with Brianna. If I tried to make it something more and it didn't work out, I'd ruin everything we've built. And if you don't try, Raymond pointed out, you might miss out on something incredible. Just think about it. Nathaniel thought about little else for the next week. He found himself watching Imani when she wasn't looking, noticing details he'd tried to ignore before. The way she bit her lip when she was concentrating. The way she threw her head back when she laughed. The way she touched his arm when she was making a point, casual and warm and somehow electric. He noticed how natural they were together, how they'd fallen into routines that felt like they'd been doing them for years instead of months. How they'd watch movies together after the children went to bed, sitting on opposite ends of the couch but somehow ending up closer by the end. How they'd talk for hours about everything and nothing, losing track of time until one of them yawned and they'd both laugh and call it a night. He noticed how Brianna had started calling Imani Miss Imani in public but Mani in private, a nickname that spoke of affection and trust. How Jerome had started asking Nathaniel for help with homework, treating him like a father figure without either of them acknowledging it out loud. How Justice had declared that Nathaniel was the coolest grown-up he knew, right after his own dad would have been if he was still alive. They were becoming a family, but Nathaniel hadn't dared to acknowledge it or ask Imani how she felt about it. He was terrified of pushing too hard, of wanting too much, of ruining the best thing that had happened to him in years. The decision was taken out of his hands one Friday evening when his car broke down. Not his Tesla, which was in the shop for routine maintenance, but the backup Mercedes that he'd been driving for the day. He was 45 minutes from home when the engine started making a terrible grinding noise, and by the time he pulled over, smoke was billowing from under the hood. He called Imani, expecting her to arrange for a tow truck and another car service. Instead, she said, "I'm coming to get you. Text me your location." "You don't have to do that," Nathaniel protested. "I can call a car. The kids and I are already in the car," Imani said. "We were heading out to get ice cream. You're on the way. Just wait there." 40 minutes later, Imani's dependable Honda Accord pulled up behind his smoking Mercedes. All 3 children piled out, asking if he was okay, if he was hurt, if the car was going to explode. Their concern warmed something in Nathaniel's chest. "I'm fine," he assured them. "The car is not fine, but I am. Can we still get ice cream?" Justice asked. "I mean after we rescue Mr. Brooks?" "Of course we can," Imani said, ruffling her son's hair. "Get back in the car, everyone. Nathaniel, you're riding shotgun." They stopped for ice cream at a small shop near the house. Nathaniel bought cones for everyone, and they sat at a picnic table outside, watching the sunset and talking about nothing important. Brianna told a long, rambling story about a girl in her class who claimed her dog could do calculus. Jerome explained the plot of his current book with intense seriousness. Justice demonstrated his latest basketball move, nearly knocking over an elderly couple's ice cream in the process. Imani and Nathaniel caught each other's eye over the chaos, and they both started laughing. It was ridiculous and messy and perfect, and Nathaniel felt something click into place inside him. This was what he wanted. Not just for now but forever. This feeling of belonging, of being part of something bigger than himself. This chaos and joy and love all tangled up together until you couldn't separate one from the other. Later that night, after the children were asleep and the house was quiet, Nathaniel knocked on the door of the guest house. Imani answered in pajamas and a robe, her hair down for once, and she looked so beautiful that Nathaniel forgot what he was going to say. "Is everything okay?" she asked, concerned. "Did you need something?" "I need to talk to you," Nathaniel said. "Can I come in?" She stepped back and let him enter. The guest house had become truly theirs over the past 6 months. There were photos on the walls of the boys with their father, of family gatherings and happy memories. There were drawings Brianna had made for them, hung with care on the refrigerator. There were books everywhere because Jerome couldn't resist a good story, and a basketball signed by the local team, because Justice had met them at a charity event. It looked like a home. It felt like love. "What's on your mind?" Imani asked, settling onto the couch and gesturing for him to sit beside her. Nathaniel sat, then stood, then sat again. "I've been thinking about our arrangement." Imani's face fell. "Oh, are we not working out? Did I do something wrong?" "No," Nathaniel said quickly. "God, no. You're perfect. More than perfect. That's actually the problem. I don't understand. Imani, when I hired you, I thought I was just getting a household manager. Someone to keep my life organized and make sure Brianna was taken care of. But you've given me so much more than that. You've given me a family." Imani was very still. "We're not your family, Nathaniel. We work for you. Do you really believe that?" Nathaniel asked. "Because I don't. Not anymore. Jerome comes to me with his homework problems and his questions about life. Justice asks me to practice basketball with him and tells me about his dreams of going to space. Brianna treats your boys like brothers and you like a mother, Imani. And I treat you like what?" Imani whispered. "Like someone I can't imagine my life without," Nathaniel said. "Like the person I want to see every morning and every night. Like someone who makes everything better just by existing. And I know this is complicated. I know I'm your employer and you live on my property and everything is tangled up together. But I can't keep pretending anymore. I can't keep acting like you're just my employee when you're so much more than that." "Nathaniel," Imani said, and her voice was shaking. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to change our arrangement," Nathaniel said. "Not the job part. You're brilliant at that and I still need your help. But the living situation. I want you and the boys to move into the main house. I want us to be a real family, not just people who happen to live on the same property. I want to adopt Jerome and Justice if they'd be okay with that because they deserve a father and I'd be honored to be that person for them. I want Brianna to have the siblings she's always wanted. I want us to be a family in every way that matters." Imani was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "You want to adopt my boys?" "Yes," Nathaniel said simply. "If you'll let me. If they'll let me. I know I can never replace their father and I'd never try to. But I love them, Imani. I love the way Jerome explains things with such passion, the way Justice makes everyone laugh, the way they've welcomed Brianna into their lives without hesitation. And I love you. I love the way you care for everyone around you, the way you make everything feel possible, the way you see the best in people even when they can't see it themselves." "You love me?" Imani said like she couldn't quite believe it. "I'm completely in love with you," Nathaniel said. "I have been for months. I've been trying to ignore it, trying to tell myself it was just gratitude or friendship or anything else. But it's not. It's love. Pure and simple and terrifying and wonderful. And I understand if you don't feel the same way. I understand if this is too much, too fast, too complicated. But I had to tell you. I had to be honest because that's what you deserve." Imani reached out and took his hand. "I love you too," she said. "I've loved you since that night in the rain when you wanted to help me and didn't make me feel small for accepting it. I've loved you watching you with Brianna, seeing how hard you try to be a good father. I've loved you watching you with my boys, seeing how naturally you've stepped into their lives. I've been so scared, Nathaniel. So scared of letting myself feel this, of risking my heart again after losing Marcus. But I can't fight it anymore. I don't want to fight it." Nathaniel felt like he could breathe properly for the first time in months. "So what do we do now?" "We take it slow," Imani said. "We talk to the children first, make sure they're okay with this. We figure out how to blend our families in a way that honors everyone's feelings, including the memory of Marcus. We take it one day at a time and build something real together." I can do slow, Nathaniel said. As long as I know where we're heading. Where are we heading? Imani asked, smiling through her tears. Somewhere beautiful, Nathaniel said and kissed her forehead gently. Somewhere we can all be happy together. They sat on that couch for hours talking about the future, about their fears and hopes and dreams. They talked about how to tell the children how to handle Candace if she found out, how to navigate the complications of blending their families. But mostly they talked about love. About second chances and new beginnings. About how sometimes the best things in life come from the most unexpected places. About how kindness and hope can lead to something extraordinary if you're brave enough to follow them. Outside, the stars came out one by one, filling the sky with light. And inside the guest house, two people who'd thought they'd never find love again discovered that they'd been wrong. That love could find you in the middle of heartbreak and exhaustion. That it could show up in the form of a stranger who saw you when no one else did. That it could save you if you were willing to be saved. The conversation with the children happened on a Saturday morning. Nathaniel and Imani had planned it carefully, wanting to make sure everyone felt heard and respected. They made pancakes together, letting the children help, and then gathered around the kitchen table for what Nathaniel called a family meeting. Am I in trouble? Justice asked immediately. Because I didn't break that vase. It was already broken when I found it. You're not in trouble, Imani assured him. None of you are. We just want to talk about something important. Brianna perked up. Are we getting a dolphin? No dolphins, Nathaniel said with a laugh. But it is something exciting. Something that would change all of our lives. The children exchanged glances, suddenly serious. Jerome, always the perceptive one, said, Does this have to do with you and Miss Imani? Yes, Nathaniel said. It does. How would you all feel if Miss Imani and I started dating? There was a long moment of silence. Then Justice said, What does dating mean exactly? Like, do you hold hands and stuff? Sometimes, Imani said, fighting a smile. It means spending time together as more than friends. It means being a couple. Like boyfriend and girlfriend? Brianna asked. Exactly like that, Nathaniel confirmed. But you're grown-ups, Brianna pointed out. Don't grown-ups call it something different? They call it dating, Jerome said with the authority of someone who'd read about such things. Or being in a relationship. Or partners. So if you're partners, Justice said slowly, working through it, does that mean we'd all live together? Like in the same house? Eventually, maybe, Imani said. If everyone was comfortable with it. But we'd take things very slowly. We'd make sure everyone was okay with each change before we made it. Would you get married? Brianna asked, her eyes wide. We don't know, Nathaniel said honestly. We're not thinking that far ahead yet. Right now, we just want to see if being together makes us happy. But we wanted to ask you all first because you're the most important people in our lives. If any of you are uncomfortable with this, we need to know. The children were quiet again, thinking it over. Then Jerome spoke up. Would you be our dad if you and Mom are together? The question hung in the air. Nathaniel felt his throat tighten. I would never try to replace your father, he said carefully. Your dad was a hero. He loved you boys more than anything. But if you wanted, I could be a father figure in your life. Someone who's there for you, who helps you with homework and comes to your games and teaches you things. I'd be honored to be that person for you. What if we wanted to call you Dad? Justice asked quietly. Imani made a small sound and Nathaniel realized she was crying. Happy tears, but tears nonetheless. Then I would be the luckiest man in the world, Nathaniel said, his own voice rough with emotion. And we'd be brothers? Justice asked Brianna. Like for real? We'd be family, Brianna said, taking his hand. We already kind of are. But this would make it official. Jerome looked at his mother. Are you happy, Mom? Does Mr. Brooks make you happy? He makes me very happy, Imani said. So do all of you. And I think we could all be happy together as a family. But only if everyone agrees. I agree, Brianna said immediately. I've wanted a mom forever. And I already love Miss Imani. And Jerome and Justice are like the brothers I never knew I wanted. I'm in, Justice said. As long as I don't have to wear a tux to a wedding or anything. Tuxes are uncomfortable. Everyone laughed and the tension broke. Jerome was the last to speak, but when he did, his words were thoughtful and mature beyond his years. Dad would want us to be happy, he said. He would want Mom to find love again. And he would want us to have a good father figure in our lives. I think Mr. Brooks is a good man. I think he'd treat us right. So yes, I agree too. Nathaniel felt like his heart might burst. Thank you, he said. All of you. I promise I'll do my best by you. I won't be perfect, but I'll always try. That's all any of us can do, Imani said, looking at him with so much love that Nathaniel had to look away before he started crying too. The transition from separate households to one blended family took 2 months. They didn't rush it, letting everyone adjust at their own pace. First, they had more family dinners together. Then family movie nights. Then weekend trips to the zoo and the science museum and the aquarium where Brianna could stare at dolphins for hours. They established new routines. Sunday mornings were for pancakes and planning the week ahead. Friday nights were for game night, with heated competitions of Monopoly and charades. Bedtime became a group affair, with all 3 children getting tucked in and stories read, rotating who did the tucking and reading. Nathaniel taught Jerome and Justice about business and technology, letting them shadow him at work occasionally. Imani taught Brianna about cooking and gardening, letting her help plant vegetables in the backyard. They learned to share responsibilities, to communicate openly, to respect each other's boundaries. And slowly, carefully, Nathaniel and Imani learned to be a couple. They went on dates, real dates, where they dressed up and went to restaurants and held hands under the table. They stayed up late talking, sharing their fears and dreams and the parts of themselves they'd kept hidden for so long. They kissed in the kitchen when they thought the children weren't looking and laughed when they got caught. 3 months into their official relationship, Nathaniel had a business trip to London. It was unavoidable, a meeting with potential investors that could mean huge things for his company. He'd be gone for 5 days, and he found himself dreading it in a way he never had before. I don't want to go, he told Imani the night before his flight. They were sitting in the garden watching fireflies dance in the darkness. You have to, Imani said practically. Your company needs you. I'll miss you, Nathaniel said. I'll miss all of you. That's new for me. Usually business trips feel like an escape, a chance to focus just on work. But now the idea of being away from this, from you, feels wrong. It's only 5 days, Imani pointed out, but she was smiling. We'll video call every night. And the kids are planning to make you welcome home signs. I love them so much, Nathaniel said suddenly. Jerome and Justice. I love them like they're my own sons. Is that okay? Am I allowed to feel that? Of course you are, Imani said, taking his hand. They love you too. Jerome told me the other day that you remind him of his father, but different. Better at explaining math problems, he said, but not as good at throwing a football. He meant it as a compliment. I'll work on my football throwing, Nathaniel promised. The trip to London was successful from a business perspective. The investors agreed to fund his next project, and he secured partnerships that would expand his company's reach across Europe. But every night he video called home and felt the distance like a physical ache. The children would crowd around Imani's phone, talking over each other about their day. Brianna showed him the science project she was working on. Justice demonstrated a new basketball move he'd learned. Jerome read aloud from his current book, wanting to share the good parts. And Imani would sit there, smiling at the chaos, occasionally interjecting to tell the children to let their father, and she'd started calling him that, their father, like it was the most natural thing in the world, actually speak. On the last night after the children had gone to bed, Nathaniel and Imani talked for 2 hours. They talked about nothing important. About what they'd have for dinner when he got home, about whether they should get a dog, Brianna was campaigning hard for one, about how the garden was growing. But underneath the mundane topics, there was something deeper. A connection that distance couldn't break, a love that was becoming more solid with every passing day. I'm coming home tomorrow, Nathaniel said as the call was winding down. I land at 6 in the evening. We'll be there to pick you up, Imani said. The kids are making signs, remember? Justice says, welcome home, Dad, with about 50 exclamation points. Nathaniel felt his eyes burning. He called me Dad? He's been practicing, Imani said softly. He wanted to make sure he said it right. Jerome is still working up to it, but he'll get there. They both will. I can't wait to see you, Nathaniel said. I can't wait to be home. We can't wait either, Imani said. We love you. I love you too, Nathaniel said. All of you. So much it scares me sometimes. That's how you know it's real, Imani said. Real love is always a little scary. But it's worth it. When Nathaniel came through the arrivals gate the next evening, he saw them immediately. All 4 of them holding signs that said, welcome home, in various degrees of artistic ability. Justice's had the exclamation points as promised. Brianna's had drawings of dolphins, of course. Jerome's was simple but elegant, with each letter carefully drawn. And Imani's just said, we missed you, with a heart at the end. He dropped his bags and opened his arms, and they all crashed into him at once. The children were talking at once, Imani was laughing, and Nathaniel felt so overwhelmingly happy that he couldn't speak. He just held them all, his family, and knew that he was finally home in every way that mattered. That night, after they'd ordered Chinese takeout and eaten it straight from the cartons while sitting on the living room floor, after the children had told him everything he'd missed in painful detail, after they'd finally gone to bed, Nathaniel and Imani sat on the couch together. "I want to ask you something," Nathaniel said. "Okay," Imani said cautiously. "Move in with me. Into the main house, I mean. Not as my employee or my household manager but as my partner. Let's really be a family, all of us under one roof. What do you say?" Imani looked around the main house, which had already started to feel like theirs anyway. The photos on the walls included all of them now. The kitchen had Jerome's science project on the counter. The living room had Justice's basketball in the corner. Brianna's dolphin posters were upstairs in her room, right next to photos of her with the boys. They'd already become a family. Moving into the same house would just make it official. "Yes," Imani said. "Yes, let's do it. Let's really do this." Nathaniel kissed her then, properly kissed her, and it felt like coming home and starting an adventure all at once. It felt like everything he'd been looking for without knowing he was searching. It felt like love, real and true and permanent. The move happened over the next month. They gave Jerome and Justice the rooms next to Brianna's, decorating them according to each boy's preferences. Jerome's room became a library with a telescope by the window. Justice's room got basketball posters and glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. Imani and Nathaniel shared the primary bedroom, and it felt both strange and natural all at once. The first morning they all woke up in the same house. Nathaniel made breakfast for everyone. He burned the bacon and oversalted the eggs, but nobody cared. They sat around the kitchen table, this family they'd built from scratch, and laughed and talked and planned their day. This was what happiness looked like, Nathaniel thought. Not perfection but presence. Not grand gestures but small moments. Not the absence of fear but the courage to love anyway. And when Jerome quietly said, "Good morning, Dad," for the first time, Nathaniel knew that every hard moment, every lonely night, every mistake and heartbreak had been worth it to get to this place. They were a family. Messy and blended and imperfect and absolutely perfect all at once. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm over the next few months. The family developed routines that worked for all of them. Nathaniel learned to leave work on time most days, prioritizing dinner with the family over late meetings. Imani continued managing the household, but now she did it as a partner rather than an employee. The children thrived in school, their grades improving as their home life stabilized. It was almost too perfect, which should have been Nathaniel's first warning that something was about to disrupt their happiness. The disruption came on a Tuesday afternoon in the form of a black luxury sedan parked in their driveway. Nathaniel arrived home from work to find Candace sitting on his front steps, perfectly dressed as always, her expression a mixture of false sweetness and barely concealed anger. "Hello, Nathaniel," she said, standing as he approached. "We need to talk." "I have nothing to say to you," Nathaniel said, moving to walk past her. "You need to leave. You're trespassing." "I want to talk about Brianna," Candace said, and her voice had that sharp edge he remembered from their marriage. "I've heard some very interesting things about your new living situation." Nathaniel's jaw tightened. "My living situation is none of your business." "It is when it involves my daughter," Candace countered. "You're living with some woman and her children. You're playing house with strangers while my daughter is caught in the middle." "Imani and her sons are not strangers," Nathaniel said coldly. "They're family. More family than you've ever been to Brianna." "So it's true then," Candace said. "You're dating the help. How classy, Nathaniel. How very middle class of you." "Get off my property," Nathaniel said, his hands clenching into fists. "Now." "Not until we talk about custody," Candace said, and now her mask slipped completely. "I want joint custody of Brianna. I want her with me half the time. It's only fair." Nathaniel laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Fair? You think it's fair to abandon your child for years and then waltz back in demanding rights? You think it's fair to only show interest in Brianna now that I have someone in my life who makes me happy?" "I made a mistake," Candace said, and she actually had the audacity to look wounded. "I was young and scared and I made terrible choices. But I'm ready now. I'm ready to be a mother to my daughter. And Preston and I can give her so much. Stability, a traditional family structure, a mother and father who are married." "You mean you and Preston need to look like a complete family for his political campaign?" Nathaniel said, finally understanding. "This isn't about Brianna at all. This is about his run for city council. You need the perfect family photo." Candace's eyes flashed. "That's not true," Isn't it? Nathaniel challenged. You haven't seen Brianna in 6 months, Candace. You missed her birthday. You missed her school play. You missed Thanksgiving and Christmas. But now, right when Preston is launching his campaign, suddenly you want custody. It's transparent and pathetic. I'm going to file paperwork, Candace threatened. I'm going to take you to court. And when a judge hears about your living situation, about how you're exposing Brianna to instability and confusion, they'll side with me. There's nothing unstable about my home, Nathaniel said. Brianna is happy. She's thriving. She has a family who loves her. She has a janitor playing mommy and 2 random boys pretending to be her siblings, Candace sneered. That's not a family. That's a fantasy you're living out because you can't accept that you failed at marriage. The front door opened before Nathaniel could respond. Imani stepped out and she looked calm but her eyes were hard. I think you should leave, she said to Candace. You're not welcome here. And you are. Candace turned her venom on Imani. You're the employee who got lucky. Don't think I don't see what you're doing. You're using Nathaniel for his money, using Brianna to secure your position. It's gold digging at its finest. I'm not using anyone, Imani said evenly. I love Nathaniel and I love Brianna. I love this family we've built. And unlike you, I'm actually here every day. I make her breakfast and help with homework and listen to her talk about dolphins until my ears go numb. That's what real love looks like. Not whatever game you're playing. Candace stepped forward, her face twisted with rage. You have no right to talk to me about my daughter. Actually, I do, Imani said. Because I'm the one who's been here for her. I'm the one who held her when she cried because her mother forgot her birthday again. I'm the one who listens to her fears and celebrates her victories. I'm the one who tucks her in at night and makes sure she feels loved. You're nothing, Candace spat. You're a nobody who got lucky. Maybe, Imani said. But at least I show up. At least I'm here. Where were you for the past 8 years? Oh right, finding yourself. Well, congratulations, you found yourself. Now you can lose yourself again because Brianna doesn't need you. We'll see what a judge says about that, Candace said, turning back to Nathaniel. My lawyer will be in touch. And when we get to court, I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man you are. The kind who moves strangers into his home and exposes his daughter to God knows what. She walked to her car, her heels clicking on the pavement. Before she got in, she turned back one more time. You're going to lose, Nathaniel. You're going to lose everything. Then she was gone, leaving Nathaniel and Imani standing in the driveway, both shaking with anger and fear. She can't do this, Imani said. She can't just show up and demand custody after all this time. She can try, Nathaniel said grimly. And with enough money and the right lawyers, she might succeed. They went inside to find all 3 children sitting on the stairs, clearly having heard everything. Brianna's eyes were red from crying. Is my mom really going to take me away? She asked in a small voice. Nathaniel sat on the stairs and pulled his daughter into his lap, even though she was really too big for it now. No, sweetheart. I'm not going to let that happen. But she said. She said a lot of things, Nathaniel interrupted gently. But saying something doesn't make it true. You're happy here, right? So happy, Brianna said. I don't want to leave. I don't want to live with her. I don't even know her. Then we'll fight this, Nathaniel promised. We'll get a lawyer and we'll go to court and we'll tell the judge the truth. That you're happy and loved and exactly where you want to be. What if the judge doesn't listen? Jerome asked, ever the pragmatic one. Then we'll appeal, Nathaniel said. And if that doesn't work, we'll keep fighting. I'm not giving up on this family. I'm not giving up on any of you. Justice put his hand on Nathaniel's shoulder. We won't give up either, Dad. We're a team. Nathaniel felt his heart contract with love and fear all tangled together. Yes, we are. And teams stick together no matter what. The next few weeks were a blur of legal consultations. Nathaniel hired the best family law attorney in the city, a formidable woman named Patricia Gonzalez who'd never lost a custody case. She listened to their story, reviewed all the documentation, and then looked at Nathaniel with sympathy. I'm going to be honest with you, she said. This is going to be ugly. Candace has a strong legal team, and they're going to try to paint you as an unfit father. They'll use your relationship with Imani against you, suggest that you're prioritizing your love life over your daughter's well-being. That's not true, Nathaniel protested. I know it's not true, Patricia said. But we need to prove it. We need witnesses who can testify to Brianna's happiness and stability. We need documentation of Candace's absence from Brianna's life. We need to show that this family, unconventional as it may be, is exactly what Brianna needs. Can we do that? Imani asked. Yes, Patricia said confidently. But it's going to take time and preparation. And there's something else you need to consider. What? Nathaniel asked. Brianna is 9 years old. That's old enough for the judge to consider her wishes. If she wants to stay with you, if she can articulate why in court, that will carry significant weight. She's 9, Nathaniel said. We can't ask her to testify. That's too much pressure. It might be necessary, Patricia said gently. I know it's difficult, but Brianna's voice matters here. She has the right to say where she wants to live. That night, Nathaniel and Imani talked to Brianna. They explained that she might need to talk to the judge, to tell the truth about her feelings and her life. Brianna listened carefully, then nodded. I can do it, she said. I want to do it. I want to tell the judge that I love you, Dad. And that I love Monty and Jerome and Justice. I want to tell them that this is my family and I don't want to leave. You're so brave, Imani said, hugging her tight. I'm not brave, Brianna said. I'm just telling the truth. That's not brave. That's just being honest. The court date was set for 6 weeks away. In the meantime, life continued as normally as possible. The children went to school. Nathaniel went to work. Imani managed the household. They had family dinners and game nights and movie marathons. They tried not to let the looming court case overshadow their daily lives. But at night, after the children were asleep, Nathaniel and Imani would lie in bed and talk about their fears. What if we lose? Imani asked one night. What if the judge decides Candace is right and Brianna should be with her? Then we appeal, Nathaniel said. And we keep fighting. What if that's not enough? Then we'll figure something else out, Nathaniel said. But I refuse to believe that a judge will look at our family, at how happy Brianna is, and decide she should be torn away from everything she knows. That's not justice. That's cruelty. I'm scared, Imani admitted. I'm scared of losing her. I'm scared of what this will do to all the kids. They've gotten so close. Losing Brianna would devastate Jerome and Justice too. I know, Nathaniel said, pulling her closer. I'm scared too. But we can't let fear win. We have to have faith that the truth will be enough. Faith, Imani repeated. My mother named me Imani because she had faith that better days were coming. I need to remember that now. Better days are coming, Nathaniel promised. We just have to get through this storm first. As the court date approached, Patricia prepared them thoroughly. She practiced questions with Nathaniel, helping him articulate why he was the better parent without bad-mouthing Candace. She coached Imani on how to describe her role in Brianna's life without overstepping. She even talked to Jerome and Justice, making sure they understood what might happen and how they could support their family. And she talked to Brianna, gently and carefully, preparing her for what she might be asked and how to answer honestly. Just tell the truth, Patricia said. That's all you need to do. Tell them how you feel, what your life is like, what you want. Can you do that? Yes, Brianna said. I can do that. The night before the hearing, the whole family gathered in the living room. They didn't talk about the court case. Instead, they played games and ate popcorn and laughed until their sides hurt. It was a deliberate choice, a decision to focus on joy rather than fear. Before bed, Brianna hugged each of them. I love you, she said to Jerome and Justice. You're the best brothers ever. We love you too, they said together. She hugged Imani next. Thank you for being my Mani. Thank you for making everything better. Thank you for letting me love you, Imani said, her voice thick with emotion. Finally, she hugged her father. We're going to win tomorrow, right, Dad? We're going to tell the truth, Nathaniel said. And the truth is that you're loved and happy and exactly where you belong. That has to be enough. It will be, Brianna said with the certainty of a child who still believed in justice and happy endings. It has to be. As Nathaniel tucked her in that night, he hoped with everything in him that his daughter was right. That truth and love and justice would prevail. That their family, unconventional as it was, would survive this challenge. Because losing Brianna wasn't an option. It simply wasn't. This family they'd built, this beautiful blended creation of hope and second chances, was too precious to lose. Tomorrow they would fight for it. And they would win. They had to. The courthouse was cold and imposing, all marble floors and high ceilings that made everyone's voices echo. Nathaniel held Brianna's hand on one side and Imani held it on the other as they walked through the metal detectors. Jerome and Justice walked close behind, their young faces serious and determined. Patricia Gonzalez met them in the hallway outside the courtroom. She looked professional and confident in a navy suit, her briefcase full of evidence and testimony that would prove Nathaniel was the better parent. Remember what we practiced, she told Nathaniel and Imani. Stay calm, answer honestly, and don't let Candace's lawyers bait you into anger. The judge will see through their tactics if you don't give them ammunition. Candace arrived with Preston and 3 lawyers, all of them looking polished and expensive. She didn't even glance at Brianna, which Nathaniel noted with a flash of anger. This woman claimed to want custody of her daughter, but she couldn't even be bothered to acknowledge her presence. The courtroom itself was smaller than Nathaniel expected. Judge Sarah Martinez sat at the bench, a middle-aged Latina woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense expression. She reviewed the case file as everyone took their seats, then looked up at both parties. This is a custody hearing regarding Brianna Brooks, she said. Mrs. Preston, you're requesting joint physical custody. Mr. Brooks, you're opposing this request and seeking to maintain sole custody. Is that correct? Both lawyers confirmed. Then let's begin, Judge Martinez said. Mrs. Preston, your attorney may call his first witness. Candace's lead attorney, a silver-haired man named Gerald Blackwell, stood. Your Honor, I'd like to call Candace Preston to the stand. Candace took the oath and sat down, arranging her skirt carefully. She looked perfect, Nathaniel thought bitterly. She always did. That was part of the problem. She was so good at performing the role of the concerned mother that people forgot to look at her actual behavior. Mrs. Preston, Blackwell began, can you tell the court about your relationship with your daughter? Brianna is my whole world, Candace said, her voice catching slightly. I made a terrible mistake when she was young. I was only 22 when she was born and I panicked. I wasn't ready to be a mother. I left and I regret that decision every single day. What changed? Blackwell asked. I grew up, Candace said. I got therapy. I worked on myself. And I realized that I was running from the best thing that ever happened to me. I want to be in Brianna's life now. I want to be the mother she deserves. And Mr. Brooks has denied you that opportunity? He's made it very difficult, Candace said. He screens my calls. He makes excuses for why I can't see Brianna. And now he's moved another woman and her children into his home, creating a confusing situation for my daughter. I'm worried about her well-being. Thank you, Blackwell said. No further questions. Patricia stood for cross-examination. Mrs. Preston, you said you regret leaving your daughter. When exactly did this regret begin? About 2 years after I left, Candace said. And yet your first attempt to contact Brianna didn't happen until she was 7 years old. That's 4 years after your supposed regret began. Can you explain that discrepancy? Candace shifted uncomfortably. I was scared. I didn't know how to reach out. You knew Mr. Brooks's address and phone number, Patricia pointed out. You could have sent a letter or made a call at any time. But you didn't. In fact, according to phone records, you've called to speak to Brianna exactly 11 times in the past 2 years. Does that sound like someone who wants to be an active parent? I tried, Candace protested. But Nathaniel made it difficult. Did Mr. Brooks ever deny you access to Brianna? Yes or no, Mrs. Preston? Did Mr. Brooks ever explicitly deny you the right to see your daughter? No, Candace admitted. But the way he talked to me. Did he obtain a restraining order against you? No. Did he change his number or move without telling you? No. So in fact, you had every opportunity to be involved in your daughter's life, and you chose not to take it. Is that accurate? That's not fair, Candace said, her voice rising. You're twisting things. I'm stating facts, Patricia said calmly. Let's talk about this sudden interest in custody. Your husband, Preston, is running for city council, correct? What does that have to do with anything? Please answer the question. Yes, he's running for city council. And wouldn't a complete family unit with a child be beneficial to his campaign? Wouldn't it help him present as a family man? That's not why I'm doing this, Candace said. Then why now? Patricia pressed. Why, after 8 years of minimal contact, are you suddenly fighting for joint custody? What changed? Candace couldn't answer. She stammered and deflected, but she couldn't give a convincing reason. Patricia let the silence hang in the courtroom before saying, no further questions. The next witness was Preston, who tried to present himself as a stable stepfather figure. But under Patricia's questioning, he admitted that he'd never actually spent time alone with Brianna, didn't know her favorite subject in school, couldn't name a single one of her friends. Then came Nathaniel's turn. He took the stand with his heart pounding, but Patricia's preparation served him well. He spoke clearly about his relationship with Brianna, about their daily routines, about her love of marine biology and her dreams of becoming an oceanographer. Tell me about your living situation, Patricia prompted. I live with my partner Imani Washington, and her 2 sons Jerome and Justice, Nathaniel said. We're a blended family. All 3 children attend the same school, participate in activities together, and have formed close sibling relationships. And how has this affected Brianna? She's thriving, Nathaniel said simply. Her grades have improved. She's more confident. She has siblings who love her and a parental figure in Imani who's given her stability and affection. She's happy. Blackwell's cross-examination was aggressive. He tried to suggest that Nathaniel worked too much, that he prioritized his company over his daughter, that moving Imani and her sons in was selfish and confusing. Isn't it true that you work 60-hour weeks? Blackwell asked. Sometimes, Nathaniel admitted. But I'm also there for Brianna every night for dinner. I help with homework. I attend every school event. I'm present in the ways that matter. But you're dating your former employee. Doesn't that create an inappropriate power dynamic? Imani was never my employee in the traditional sense, Nathaniel said. And our relationship developed naturally, based on mutual respect and shared values. There's nothing inappropriate about 2 single parents finding love and building a family together. Imani was called next. She spoke about her role in Brianna's life, about the daily routines they shared, about how all 3 children had bonded. Do you think you're replacing Brianna's mother? Blackwell asked during cross-examination. No, Imani said firmly. I would never try to replace anyone. But I do think I'm filling a void that's been in Brianna's life for 8 years. I'm giving her the maternal figure she's been missing, the one her biological mother chose not to be. That's quite presumptuous, Blackwell said. It's honest, Imani corrected. Brianna needed someone to braid her hair and talk about girl stuff and just be there consistently. That's what I've tried to provide. Not as a replacement, but as someone who genuinely cares about her well-being. The most powerful testimony came from the witnesses Patricia had lined up. Brianna's teacher, Mrs. Chin, testified about the dramatic improvement in Brianna's academic performance and social adjustment since the beginning of the school year. She used to be quiet and withdrawn, Mrs. Chin said. But now she's engaged and happy. She talks about her brothers all the time. She's written several essays about her family, and the love in those words is undeniable. Brianna's therapist, Dr. Williams, testified that Brianna was well-adjusted and showed no signs of confusion or distress about her living situation. In fact, Dr. Williams said, Brianna has expressed to me multiple times that she feels more secure and loved now than she ever has before. The addition of Imani and her sons to the family unit has been overwhelmingly positive for her. The school principal, Mr. Johnson, testified about Nathaniel's consistent involvement in school activities and Brianna's obvious happiness. I've been an educator for 30 years, Mr. Johnson said. I can tell when a child is thriving and when they're struggling. Brianna is thriving. She has a father who shows up, siblings who support her, and a home environment that's clearly nurturing and stable. Then came the moment everyone had been dreading. Judge Martinez asked if Brianna was prepared to testify. I am, Brianna said, her voice small but steady. She took the stand and answered the preliminary questions about her name and age. Then Judge Martinez leaned forward, her expression gentle. Brianna, I know this is scary, she said. But I need you to tell me the truth about your life. Can you do that? Yes, ma'am, Brianna said. Tell me about your home. What's a typical day like for you? Brianna took a breath and began to speak. She talked about waking up to the smell of breakfast, about Jerome helping her with math homework even though it was hard for him, about Justice making her laugh at dinner with his terrible jokes. She talked about her dad reading to her every night and Imani braiding her hair before school. Do you know your mother? Judge Martinez asked. Sort of, Brianna said. She calls sometimes. She sends presents on my birthday if she remembers. But I don't really know her. Not like I know my dad and Mani and my brothers. Your brothers? Judge Martinez repeated. You mean Jerome and Justice? Yes, Brianna said. They're my brothers. I know we're not related by blood, but they're still my brothers. They protect me and play with me and make me feel like I'm not alone. And if I asked you where you want to live, what would you say? Brianna didn't hesitate. With my dad. In our house. With my family. I know my mom says she wants me, but she doesn't really. Not the way my dad wants me. My dad actually knows me. He knows I want to study dolphins and that I hate mushrooms and that I'm scared of the dark. My mom doesn't know any of that stuff. Do you love your mother? Judge Martinez asked gently. Brianna thought about it. I think I could love her if she let me. But she'd have to actually be there. She'd have to show up and be a real mom, not just someone who calls on holidays. And even if she did that, I'd still want to live with my dad. Because he's the one who's been there all along. He's the one who never left. There wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. Even Candace was crying, though whether from guilt or performance, Nathaniel couldn't tell. Judge Martinez called a recess after Brianna's testimony. Everyone filed out into the hallway, and Nathaniel immediately pulled his daughter into a hug. "You were so brave," he said. "I'm so proud of you." "Did I do okay?" Brianna asked. "You were perfect," Imani said, joining the hug. "You told the truth, and that's all anyone can ask." Jerome and Justice crowded in too, and for a moment, they all just held each other in the courthouse hallway, drawing strength from their togetherness. When court reconvened, Judge Martinez looked at both parties seriously. "I've heard testimony from both sides," she said. "I've reviewed the evidence and spoken with the child in question. And I'm prepared to make my ruling." The room fell silent. Nathaniel reached for Imani's hand, gripping it tightly. "In cases of custody, my primary concern is always the best interest of the child," Judge Martinez continued. "Not the desires of the parents, not the convenience of the adults involved, but what is genuinely best for the child's well-being and development." She looked at Candace. "Mrs. Preston, I understand that you regret your earlier decisions. I believe you when you say you want to be part of your daughter's life. But wanting something doesn't entitle you to it, especially when your desire wasn't strong enough to prompt action for 8 years. She turned to Nathaniel. "Mr. Brooks, I see a father who has been consistently present in his daughter's life. I see a man who has built a stable, loving home. I see a family that, while unconventional, is clearly functioning well and meeting Brianna's needs." Nathaniel held his breath. "Therefore," Judge Martinez said, "I'm ruling in favor of Mr. Brooks. He will retain sole physical and legal custody of Brianna Brooks. However, Mrs. Preston, I'm granting you supervised visitation rights. You may see your daughter once a month for 4 hours with supervision by a court-approved third party. If after 6 months, you've consistently attended these visits and Brianna expresses a desire for more contact, we can revisit the arrangement." Candace stood up, her face red with anger. "This is ridiculous. You can't." "Mrs. Preston," Judge Martinez said sharply. "I can and I have. If you have an issue with my ruling, you may file an appeal. But I suggest you use this opportunity to actually build a relationship with your daughter instead of fighting a legal battle you're unlikely to win. Court is adjourned." She banged her gavel and it was over. Nathaniel felt like he couldn't breathe. They'd won. Brianna was staying with them. Their family was safe. He turned to Imani and saw his own relief and joy reflected in her eyes. Then he turned to Brianna and knelt down to her level. "You're staying home," he said. "You're staying with us." "I know," Brianna said, smiling through her tears. "I told you we'd win." They left the courthouse as a family, walking out into the sunshine with their heads held high. Candace and Preston drove away in their expensive car, defeated and angry. But Nathaniel didn't care about them anymore. He cared about the 4 people surrounding him, the family he'd built from love and hope and sheer determination. "Ice cream?" Justice suggested. "I feel like this calls for ice cream." "Ice cream it is," Nathaniel agreed. They went to their favorite ice cream shop and ate cones at a picnic table, celebrating their victory and their togetherness. The kids told jokes and made plans for the weekend. Imani and Nathaniel sat close together, their hands intertwined, their hearts full. "Thank you," Nathaniel said to Imani, "for standing with me through this. For being exactly what Brianna needed." "Thank you for letting me," Imani said. "For giving me and my boys this family. For loving us all so completely. Always," Nathaniel promised. "For the rest of our lives. Always." And as the sun set on that difficult day, they drove home together, a family in every way that mattered. They'd faced a challenge and emerged stronger. They'd stood together against adversity and won. And now, finally, they could move forward without the shadow of uncertainty hanging over them. They could just be a family, loving and living and building their future together. It was everything Nathaniel had ever wanted. Everything he'd been afraid to hope for. And it was just the beginning. 6 months passed in a blur of ordinary joy. The kind of joy that comes from stability and love and knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Candace attended her supervised visits sporadically at first, then stopped showing up altogether. She sent a text through her lawyer saying she was too busy with Preston's campaign and would reach out after the election. Brianna seemed relieved rather than hurt. "I don't need her," she told Nathaniel one evening. "I have Monty." She's my mom in all the ways that matter. Imani cried when Brianna told her that happy tears that she tried to hide in the kitchen while making dinner. But Nathaniel saw, and he felt his heart swell with love for both of them. Life had settled into beautiful routine. Nathaniel still worked hard, but he'd learned to set boundaries. He was home for dinner every night unless absolutely necessary. He attended every school event for all three children. He'd started teaching Jerome about coding, watching the boy's eyes light up with the same passion Nathaniel felt for technology. He'd started attending Justice's basketball games, cheering from the stands and learning all the parents' names. And Brianna, she was thriving in ways he'd never imagined possible. The relationship between all three children had deepened into genuine sibling bonds. They fought sometimes, as all siblings do, arguing about whose turn it was to pick the movie or who had borrowed whose tablet without asking. But they also defended each other fiercely. When a kid at school made fun of Jerome's glasses, Justice had stood up for him so forcefully that the principal had to call both boys into the office. When Brianna struggled with a math test, Jerome had stayed up late helping her study. When Justice got nervous before his first big basketball game, Brianna had made him a good luck banner with dolphins on it that he kept in his room. They were a family real and true and permanent. And Nathaniel knew it was time to make that permanence official. He'd been planning it for weeks, working with Patricia to start adoption proceedings for Jerome and Justice. He'd already spoken to both boys, asking if they'd be comfortable with him legally becoming their father. They'd both said yes, Jerome with quiet dignity and Justice with an enthusiastic hug that nearly knocked Nathaniel over. But before he filed the paperwork, he needed to do something else. Something he should have done months ago but had been too scared, too cautious, too worried about rushing things. He needed to ask Imani to marry him. He bought the ring on a Thursday, a simple but elegant diamond that reminded him of Imani herself. Beautiful, strong, and absolutely perfect. He asked the children for their blessing that evening after dinner, gathering all three of them in the living room while Imani was on a phone call. "I want to ask Mani to marry me," he said simply. "But I wanted to make sure you three were okay with it first. This affects all of us, not just me and Imani." "Are you asking for real?" Brianna said, bouncing on the couch with excitement. "Like, with a ring and everything?" "With a ring and everything," Nathaniel confirmed. "Yes," Brianna said immediately. Yes. I want Mani to be my actual mom." "Jerome? Justice?" Nathaniel looked at the boys. "You'll take care of her, right?" Jerome asked seriously. "You'll make her happy?" "I'll spend every day of my life trying," Nathaniel promised. "Then yes," Jerome said. "You should marry her." "What he said," Justice added. "Plus, if you guys get married, that means we're all related for real. Like, legally and everything. That's pretty cool." Nathaniel felt tears threatening. "Thank you. All of you. And there's one more thing. I want to adopt you boys. Jerome and Justice, I want to legally be your father. I'll never try to replace your dad. He'll always be your father. But I'd like to be a father to you too if you'll let me." The boys looked at each other, some silent communication passing between them. Then Justice spoke. "Dad would like you. He would think you're a good man. And I think he'd want us to have a father, someone to look after us and Mom." "So yes," Jerome added. "We'd like that. We'd like you to be our dad." Nathaniel pulled both boys into a hug and Brianna joined in, and they all sat there on the couch holding each other while Nathaniel tried not to cry like a baby. "Okay," he said finally. "Okay, here's the plan. This weekend we're going camping in the backyard. And Saturday night, under the stars, I'm going to ask her. I need you all to help me make it special." The children dove into planning with enthusiasm. Brianna made decorations, stringing lights through the trees. Jerome researched constellations so they could point them out to Imani. Justice helped Nathaniel set up the tent and arrange blankets and pillows inside. Saturday arrived with perfect weather. Clear skies, warm but not hot, with a gentle breeze that smelled like summer. They spent the day together as a family, going to the farmer's market and making lunch and playing basketball in the driveway. Imani seemed to sense something was different, kept giving Nathaniel curious looks, but she didn't push. As evening fell, they ordered pizza and ate it on a blanket in the backyard. The children were practically vibrating with excitement, barely able to contain the secret. Imani laughed at their energy, not knowing the real reason behind it. "You three are acting strange," she said. "What's going on?" "Nothing," all three said in unison, which just made them look more suspicious. As darkness settled, Nathaniel lit a small campfire in the fire pit. They roasted marshmallows and made s'mores, getting chocolate and marshmallow everywhere. The children told stories, competed to see who could spot the most constellations, and gradually, one by one, announced they were tired and went inside. It was completely choreographed, but Imani still didn't seem to realize. She and Nathaniel sat by the fire, watching the flames dance and listening to the crickets sing. This was a perfect day, Imani said, leaning against Nathaniel's shoulder. Thank you for suggesting it. There's something I want to talk to you about, Nathaniel said, his heart pounding so hard he was sure she could hear it. Okay, Imani said, sitting up and looking at him with concern. Is everything all right? Everything is more than all right, Nathaniel said. Everything is perfect, actually. That's what I want to talk about. He stood up and held out his hand. Come with me. He led her to the tent, where the children had set up the lights and blankets. It looked magical, like something from a fairy tale. Imani gasped when she saw it. Nathaniel, this is beautiful. Not as beautiful as you, Nathaniel said. Not as beautiful as the life we've built together. He took both her hands in his, looking into her eyes and seeing his entire future there. Imani, a year ago, I went to my high school reunion expecting to feel triumphant. Instead, I felt broken. I felt like a failure as a father and a man. And then you showed up. You stood up for me when no one else would. You saw me when everyone else looked through me. You changed my life that night. Nathaniel, Imani whispered, tears already starting to fall. Let me finish, he said gently. Since that night, you've made every day better just by being in it. You've brought joy and warmth and love into a house that felt empty. You've given Brianna the mother she always needed. You've let me be a father to your boys, trusted me with the most precious things in your life. You've made me believe in second chances and true love and happy endings. He knelt down on one knee, pulling the ring box from his pocket. Imani's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with shock and joy. I'm not asking you to save me, Nathaniel said. I'm asking you to build with me. I'm asking you to be my wife, my partner, my best friend for the rest of our lives. I'm asking you to make this family we've created official and permanent. Imani Washington, will you marry me? Through the tent window, Nathaniel could see 3 faces pressed against the glass of the house, watching with barely contained excitement. Imani laughed through her tears. Those kids are terrible at hiding. They really are, Nathaniel agreed. But they're our kids. And they want to know your answer just as much as I do. Yes, Imani said, pulling Nathaniel to his feet. Yes, yes, yes. 1,000 times yes. Nathaniel slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her, properly kissed her, while the children cheered from inside the house. Then all 3 of them came running out, still in their pajamas, screaming with excitement. She said yes. Brianna yelled. Monty's going to be my real mom. We're getting married. Justice shouted, doing a little dance. Congratulations, Jerome said with dignity, though his smile was as wide as his brother's. They all hugged and laughed and cried, 5 people who'd found each other through pain and loneliness and had built something beautiful together. There's more, Nathaniel said, looking at the boys. Jerome, Justice, I've started adoption proceedings. If your mom agrees and if you agree, I'd like to legally adopt you both. I'd like to be your father in every way. Imani's hands flew to her mouth again. Nathaniel, really? Really, he confirmed. I love them. I love all of you. And I want to make it official. I want us to be a family in the eyes of the law and the world, not just in our hearts. Mom? Jerome looked at Imani. What do you think? I think, Imani said, crying so hard she could barely speak, that your father would be so happy to know you'd have someone like Nathaniel to love and protect you. I think he's looking down right now and smiling. And I think yes, absolutely yes. Then it's settled, Nathaniel said. We're getting married. I'm adopting the boys. We're making this family official. They stayed up late that night, sitting around the fire and talking about the future. The children wanted to know when the wedding would be, what kind of cake they'd have, whether they could all be in the ceremony. Imani and Nathaniel promised to include them in every decision, to make sure they felt part of the celebration. Small wedding, Imani said. Just close friends and family. Nothing fancy. Whatever you want, Nathaniel agreed. As long as I get to call you my wife at the end of it. When should we do it? Brianna asked. Tomorrow? Everyone laughed. We need a little more time than that, sweetheart, Nathaniel said. But soon. How about 3 months? That gives us time to plan, but not so much time that we have to wait forever. 3 months, Imani repeated, looking at her ring in the firelight. That sounds perfect. Later, after the children had finally gone to bed, Nathaniel and Imani sat alone under the stars. I can't believe this is real, Imani said. Sometimes I feel like I'm going to wake up and it'll all be a dream. It's real, Nathaniel assured her. We're real. This family is real. And in 3 months, we're going to stand in front of everyone we love and promise to be together forever. I would have married you tonight if you'd asked, Imani admitted. I would have driven to Vegas and gotten married by an Elvis impersonator if that's what you wanted. Nathaniel laughed. Tempting, but I think the kids deserve better than Elvis. They deserve everything, Imani said. And somehow, impossibly, they're getting it. We're all getting it. We deserve it too, Nathaniel said firmly. We've both been through so much. We've both lost and struggled and fought so hard. We deserve this happiness. We deserve this love. And we're going to hold on to it with everything we have. Forever, Imani agreed. Forever, Nathaniel echoed. They sat there under the stars, engaged and happy and full of hope for the future. 3 months from now they'd be married. 6 months from that, the adoption would be finalized. And they'd spend the rest of their lives being exactly what they'd all needed. A family. Not a perfect family. Not a traditional family. But a family built on love and hope and the courage to believe in second chances. And that, Nathaniel thought as he held Imani close, was the best kind of family there was. The next 3 months flew by in a whirlwind of planning and preparation. Imani had been serious about wanting a small wedding, and Nathaniel supported her completely. They decided on the garden, the same place where he'd proposed, decorated with white and green flowers. The guest list was intimate. Nathaniel's business partner Raymond and his wife Teresa, Imani's neighbors from her old apartment who'd watched the boys when times were tough, the teachers from the children's school who'd supported them through the custody battle, and the night shift crew from Nathaniel's office building who'd been Imani's friends during her janitor days. Patricia Gonzalez received an invitation, which she accepted with tears in her eyes. I love seeing the families I help stay together, she said when they delivered it in person. But I especially love seeing them thrive. The children were heavily involved in the planning. Brianna designed the invitations, drawing dolphins and flowers around the text. Jerome researched wedding traditions from different cultures, wanting to make sure they included elements that honored both Imani's and Nathaniel's backgrounds. Justice insisted on being in charge of music selection, creating a playlist that ranged from classical to hip-hop with absolutely no logic behind the choices. It's eclectic, he explained when questioned. Like our family. 2 weeks before the wedding, the adoption hearing took place. It was simpler than the custody battle had been, with no opposition and clear evidence that Nathaniel had been acting as a father to Jerome and Justice for nearly a year. The boys testified that they wanted the adoption, that they loved Nathaniel and considered him their dad. Judge Martinez happened to be assigned to the case again. She smiled when she saw the family enter her courtroom. Back again, she said. But for happy reasons this time. The happiest, Nathaniel agreed. The proceedings took less than an hour. Judge Martinez reviewed the paperwork, spoke briefly with the boys and then signed the order. Congratulations, she said. Nathaniel Brooks, you are now the legal father of Jerome Marcus Washington and Justice Isaiah Washington. The boys would keep their last names, honoring their late father, but Nathaniel was now legally their dad. He signed the documents with shaking hands, feeling the weight and wonder of it. He had 3 children now. 3 beautiful, brilliant, challenging, amazing children. Can we change our names if we want to? Justice asked as they left the courthouse. Like hyphenate them or something? You can do whatever you want, Nathaniel said. But you don't have to change anything. Your names honor your father. That's important. What about after the wedding? Jerome asked. Will Mom be Imani Brooks? We haven't decided yet, Imani admitted. I might hyphenate Washington Brooks. Or I might keep Washington professionally and use Brooks personally. It's complicated. Nothing about this family is simple, Brianna observed. But that's okay. Simple is boring. Simple is definitely boring, Nathaniel agreed, ruffling her hair. The week before the wedding, Nathaniel's company landed its biggest contract yet, a partnership that would triple their revenue and establish them as industry leaders. His board wanted to throw a celebration, but Nathaniel declined. I'm getting married this weekend, he told them. That's the only celebration I care about right now. Raymond took him out for a bachelor party that consisted of dinner at their favorite steakhouse and beers at a quiet bar. No strippers, no Vegas, no wild debauchery. Just 2 friends talking about life and love and how lucky they'd gotten. I wasn't sure about this at first, Raymond admitted. When you told me you were dating your household manager, I thought you were making a mistake. But I was wrong. Imani is perfect for you. She's made you into a better man. She's made me into a happy man, Nathaniel corrected. I didn't even know how unhappy I was before her. I was just existing, going through the motions. Now I'm actually living. That's what love does, Raymond said. It wakes you up. Imani's bachelorette party was organized by Teresa and consisted of a spa day followed by wine and dessert at the house. The children crashed it halfway through, claiming they were bored and wanted to be part of the fun. Everyone laughed and made room, and it turned into an impromptu family celebration. The night before the wedding, Nathaniel stayed at Raymond's house to maintain the tradition of not seeing the bride before the ceremony. He barely slept, too excited and nervous and full of anticipation. When morning finally came, he got dressed with shaking hands, adjusting his tie a dozen times before Raymond finally had to step in and do it for him. "Relax," Raymond said. "She's not going to change her mind." "I know," Nathaniel said. "I'm not worried about that. I'm just overwhelmed. A year ago I thought I'd be alone forever. I thought I'd already used up my chance at love. And now I'm marrying the woman of my dreams and I have 3 incredible children and I'm so grateful I can't even express it." "Then don't," Raymond said. "Just be happy. That's enough." The garden looked like something from a fairy tale. White and green flowers were everywhere, strung through the trees and lining the aisle. Chairs were set up in neat rows, already filling with the 50 guests they'd invited. A string quartet played softly in the background. Nathaniel stood at the front with the officiant, a kind older woman named Reverend Thompson who'd agreed to perform a ceremony that honored both Christian and secular traditions. Jerome and Justice stood beside him as his junior groomsmen, looking impossibly grown up in their suits. They'd asked to stand with him rather than walk their mother down the aisle, wanting to support both of their parents. When the music changed, everyone stood. Brianna came first, wearing a green dress and carrying a basket of flower petals that she scattered with serious concentration. Then came Imani, walking alone because she'd said she didn't need anyone to give her away. "I'm giving myself," she'd explained. "I'm choosing this freely and completely." And she looked breathtaking. Her dress was simple but elegant, white with green accents, and her hair was down for once, falling in soft curls around her shoulders. She carried a small bouquet of white roses and green leaves, and her smile was so bright it could have powered the sun. Nathaniel felt tears streaming down his face and didn't even try to hide them. This woman, this incredible woman, was choosing to spend her life with him. It didn't seem possible. It didn't seem real. But she was walking toward him and her eyes were full of love, and it was happening. When she reached the front, she handed her bouquet to Brianna and took Nathaniel's hands. They were both crying, both smiling, both overwhelmed with joy. Reverend Thompson began the ceremony with words about love and family and second chances. She talked about how rare it was to find people who truly saw you, who loved you not despite your flaws but because of your whole self. She talked about the courage it took to love again after loss, to open your heart when it had been broken. Then came the vows. They'd written their own, spending hours crafting words that captured what they felt. Nathaniel went first. "Imani, you walked into my life on the worst night I'd had in years. You saw me at my lowest and chose to stand beside me anyway. You've given me more than love. You've given me hope and purpose and a family I didn't know I was missing. You've made me want to be better, not because I'm not enough but because you make me believe I can be more. I promise to love you completely, to stand beside you always, to be the partner you deserve. I promise to love your sons as my own, to honor the memory of the man who came before me, and to build a future with you that honors both our pasts. I promise to choose you every day for the rest of my life." Imani was crying too hard to speak for a moment. She took a shaky breath and began. "Nathaniel, when Marcus died I thought my life was over. I thought I'd used up my chance at love and happiness. I was wrong. You showed me that second chances exist, that love can bloom even in the middle of grief. You've given my sons a father, given me a partner and given us all a home. But more than that, you've given me back myself. You've reminded me that I'm more than just a mother or an employee or a widow. I'm a woman who deserves love and joy and all the beautiful things life has to offer. I promise to be your partner in everything, to support your dreams while pursuing my own, to love your daughter as my own, and to build this family we've created into something that lasts forever. I promise to choose you every day with gratitude and joy." There wasn't a dry eye in the audience. Even Justice was sniffling, though he tried to hide it. They exchanged rings, simple bands engraved with their wedding date. Then Reverend Thompson asked if the children wanted to say anything. This hadn't been planned, but all 3 children stepped forward. Brianna spoke first. "I used to pray for a mom. I used to ask God why mine didn't love me enough to stay. But now I know it was because I was waiting for Monty. She's the mom I was supposed to have all along." Jerome spoke next. "My dad used to say that family isn't just blood. It's the people who show up, who stay, who choose to love you. Nathaniel chose us. He chose to be our dad when he didn't have to. That makes him family in the truest way. Justice finished. I'm really glad you guys are getting married. Because now we're all official and stuff. We're the Brooks Washington family. And that's pretty cool. Everyone laughed, breaking the tension. Reverend Thompson smiled through her own tears. By the power vested in me, she said, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. Nathaniel didn't need to be told twice. He pulled Imani close and kissed her, and everyone cheered and clapped and whistled. When they finally pulled apart, they were both grinning like fools. Ladies and gentlemen, Reverend Thompson announced, I present to you Mr. and Mrs. Brooks and their children, the Brooks Washington family. They walked back down the aisle together, all 5 of them, a family in every way that mattered. The reception was held right there in the garden, with long tables set up for dinner and dancing on the lawn. The children's playlist turned out to be perfect in its chaos, making everyone laugh and dance and forget to be self-conscious. Nathaniel and Imani had their first dance to a song they'd both loved since childhood, holding each other close and swaying to the music. Then the children joined them, and soon everyone was dancing, young and old alike. During dinner, people gave toasts. Raymond talked about watching Nathaniel transform over the past year, becoming not just happier but more whole. Teresa talked about Imani's strength and grace, how she'd faced every challenge with courage. Patricia talked about the joy of watching a family survive and thrive against all odds. But the best toast came from Jerome, who stood up with shaking hands and said, My dad used to tell me that love was the most important thing. Not money or success or being popular. Just love. He said if you had love, you had everything. And looking at all of us, I think he was right. We have everything. We have each other. And that's enough. As the sun set and the stars came out, the party continued. Children chased fireflies while adults talked and laughed. Imani and Nathaniel stole moments alone throughout the evening, kissing by the garden gate and whispering promises about their future. This is perfect, Imani said as they watched their children play. I didn't know life could be this good. Neither did I, Nathaniel admitted. But we deserve it. All of us. We deserve this happiness. We do, Imani agreed. And we're going to protect it. We're going to nurture it. We're going to make sure this family stays strong. Always, Nathaniel promised. The party wound down around midnight. The guests left with full hearts and happy tears. The children, exhausted from excitement, went to bed without protest. And Nathaniel and Imani found themselves alone in their garden, surrounded by flowers and string lights and the echoes of the day's joy. We're married, Imani said wonderingly. We're actually married. Best decision I ever made, Nathaniel said. After hiring you as my household manager, of course. You didn't hire me, Imani laughed. I was already working in your building. Semantics, Nathaniel said, pulling her close. The point is you're stuck with me now. For better or worse, in sickness and health, all that traditional stuff. I can think of worse fates, Imani teased. They stayed out there for another hour just being together. Eventually they went inside and checked on the children. All 3 were fast asleep, Brianna clutching the bouquet she'd caught. She'd been the only child who tried to catch it, which everyone had found adorable. Jerome with a book still open on his chest. Justice sprawled across his bed in the boneless way only children can manage. Our kids, Nathaniel whispered. Our kids, Imani echoed. 3 months later they stood in a very different kind of building. Not a courthouse this time, but a homeless shelter where they'd started volunteering as a family every other Saturday. It had been Imani's idea. We've been given so much, she'd said. We need to give back. We need to teach the children that with privilege comes responsibility. So they came here, all 5 of them, and served meals and organized donations and talked to people who'd fallen on hard times. They listened to stories and offered what help they could. They made connections and learned names and remembered that they'd both been one bad break away from this kind of struggle. Today they were teaching a job skills workshop. Nathaniel talked about interview techniques while Imani discussed resume building. The children helped serve snacks and kept younger kids entertained in the playroom. After the workshop, a young woman approached them. She was maybe 25, with tired eyes and a baby on her hip. I just wanted to say thank you, she said. For coming here, for caring. Most people look at us like we're invisible. But you see us. You treat us like we're human. You are human, Imani said gently. You're valuable and worthy and deserving of help. We've just been lucky. That's the only difference between us. The woman's eyes filled with tears. Can I ask you something? How did you do it? How did you keep going when everything felt impossible? Imani thought about it, about all the dark days after Marcus died, about working 3 jobs and barely sleeping, about the constant fear that she wouldn't be enough for her boys. I kept hope, she said finally. I kept faith that better days were coming. And I accepted help when it was offered, even when my pride wanted me to refuse. I let kindness in. And eventually kindness led to love, and love led to this. She gestured to her family. Hope, kindness, and love. That's what got me through. That's what gets everyone through if they let it. The woman nodded, wiping her eyes. Thank you. I'll remember that. As they drove home that evening, the children chattering in the back seat about their day, Nathaniel reached over and took Imani's hand. You were right about this, he said. About volunteering. It's good for all of us. It keeps us grounded. It keeps us grateful, Imani said. It reminds us that what we have isn't guaranteed. We have to protect it and cherish it and use it to help others. Always, Nathaniel agreed. They pulled into their driveway as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. The house looked warm and welcoming, lights already on inside, home in every sense of the word. Can we play basketball before bed? Justice asked. Can we stargaze? Jerome added. Can we watch a dolphin documentary? Brianna chimed in. Nathaniel and Imani looked at each other and laughed. How about we do all 3? Nathaniel suggested. Basketball first, then documentary, then stargazing. That's going to take forever, Jerome pointed out. We have time, Imani said. We have all the time in the world. And they did. They played basketball as the sun set completely, laughing and competing and trash-talking in the way families do. They watched Brianna's documentary, letting her explain facts about dolphins they'd heard 100 times before. They lay on blankets in the backyard and looked at stars, finding constellations and making up new ones. And through it all, Nathaniel felt a peace he'd never known before. This was what happiness looked like. Not perfection, not the absence of problems, but the presence of love. The choice to show up for each other every day. The courage to keep hoping, keep trying, keep believing that better days were always possible. As they finally headed inside for bed, Brianna stopped at the door. Dad? Monty? I just want you to know something. What's that, sweetheart? Imani asked. I'm really glad you went to that reunion. I'm really glad you got humiliated and Monty showed up. Because if none of that had happened, we wouldn't be a family. And being a family is the best thing ever. Nathaniel pulled his daughter into a hug, then pulled all of them into a hug, this family they'd built from heartbreak and hope. You're right, he said. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best things. Sometimes being broken down is the only way to be built back up into something better. Hope, kindness, and love, Imani said. That's what leads us through the darkness. That's what saved all of us. That's what makes us a family, Jerome added. The Brooks Washington family, Justice said proudly. Forever, Brianna declared. Forever, they all agreed. And as they went inside, turning off lights and getting ready for bed, going through the routines that had become second nature, Nathaniel felt a gratitude so deep it was almost painful. He'd been humiliated at a reunion, broken down in front of everyone from his past. And from that breaking came Imani, and from Imani came this family, and from this family came joy he'd never imagined possible. Hope, kindness, and love had led them through their darkest times. And now those same 3 things would guide them through every day ahead, every challenge they'd face, every victory they'd celebrate. They were a family. Messy and blended and imperfect and absolutely perfect all at once. And that, Nathaniel thought as he kissed Imani goodnight and went to tuck in his 3 children, was everything he'd ever needed. Everything he'd ever wanted. Everything that made life worth living.